Okay, it's 3 o'clock, and welcome to everybody for this fourth EOSC Governance Development Forum webinar, the fourth webinar. And we are today trying a new mode of this, a real webinar mode, and you have maybe noted that you all are muted. But when we come to the Q&A session, I can promote those who explicitly have questions and so on. But let's get started. This is now also recorded, so it will be available on the website afterwards for anyone to check. So just for any newcomers, I want to introduce this what these webinars are about. We have in the EOSCpilot, we have in the governance development activity an activity that we call the Governance Development Forum, really open up for all type of stakeholders to contribute and keep informed about this work, as it concerns a lot of different organizations and stakeholders around Europe. So it's really try to enable stakeholders to contribute to the governance development and have a platform for information, dialogue, and development. And you find us on the website on the web address visible on this slide. Today we'll talk. I will present a bit. We talked about it previously, the EOSC summit in Brussels, and then also give an update on where we are in the actual work and show a glimpse of the work in progress concerning governance of EOSC. Concerning the EOSC summit, it was held in 12th of June in Brussels. It was organized by DG RTD and DG Connect. Commissioner Moedas was there together with and gave a talk. The Director General Robert Jan Smits was leading the meeting. And it was 5 different panels covering a number of EOSC topics, including governance. And as a result of this meeting, a declaration have been published that the Commission now want the member states to endorse. And it has been delivered to the member states and is then scrutinized by the member states, and and they are supposed to consider if they endorse this or not. So I want today to highlight a number of things in this declaration, as some of you might be involved in actually making a decision if this should be endorsed by your country or not, and also or get questions about it from other stakeholders, or you have questions yourself. So it was published, it was called the EOSC Declaration of 10th of July. It is a declaration and more than 30 statements about EOSC to be endorsed by the member states. There are 3 main topics here for these statements. That is about data culture and fair data, research data services and architecture, and governance and funding. And I will only touch about these governance and funding aspects here today. The declaration is starting with a number of items that is, so to say, give the scope of the thing. And what the member states are asked to do is to, and this declaration is about, is to recognizing the challenges of data-driven research in pursuing excellent science, granting that the vision of European open science is that of research data commons, widely inclusive all disciplines and member states, sustainable in the long term. So this would be a commitment of the member states then. Confirming that the implementation of the EOSC is a process, not a project, by its nature iterative and based on constant learning and mutual alignment. So the important thing here is the notion that this is a process and not just a project that comes and then disappears. And the fourth there, upholding that the EOSC summit marked the beginning and not the end of this process one based on continuous engagement with scientific stakeholders and the European Commission. Declaration proposes that all EOSC stakeholders consider sharing the following intents and will actively support their implementation in the respective capacities. And what is meant here with the following intents are these statements within the areas I previously told you about. If we look specifically on the declaration concerning governance and funding here, so it is mentioned a governance model, and here it is, I would emphasize that it talks about representativity, proportionality, accountability, inclusiveness, and transparency. So all good values we could, all of them are good values that we would assume that would be there. And it's of course supposed to be a long-term and sustainable a governance model for a long-term and sustainable research infrastructure. The governance framework here, that is also the keywords here, I would say, is that it's co-designed, stakeholder-driven, and they're composed of the three main layers it's talked about here: institutional, operational, and advisory. And that is a very overview of what is needed in the governance model. And these are typically things that we elaborate on in the EOSCpilot and the governance activity, what really this means, because there are more complexity, of course, in the framework here than just these things. Then there is one very specific thing here, and in this declaration it's talked about the governance board. And the idea of the Commission, the idea here is that there will be a board that coordinate the efforts of the stakeholders endorsing the declaration, and that they should have a broad mandate to oversee and reach the practical implementation of the EOSC roadmap by 2020. So it is there should be a roadmap, and there are drafts of a roadmap for EOSC, of course, and that is also shown through the present and forthcoming work program, E-Infrastructure and Research Infrastructure Program, that have various calls and activities that support this roadmap. So it's very much what is there. And that they also state here that this board will have an advisory role and implementing role of the decision by member states and European Commission concerning the programming, financing, and towards setting up of a long-term governance and business model. So this is a board that is supposed to kick off the whole thing and coordinate the efforts that are there. So it's yet to see how this can be implemented in practice, but this is the intention in this declaration, and also, of course, that it should be the present and future projects that are mentioned actually here directly, like the EOSCpilot, E-Infracentral, and EOSC Hub. It is mentioned about the coordination structure, and a coordination structure funded by the Horizon 2020. So this is a part of the forthcoming work program that will support a coordination structure. So it's yet to see what this can be, but it's there to help the governance board and manage the implementation of the EOSC. Of course, long-term sustainability, and the important thing here, that it will build on existing and future resources in a strategic way, and it requires the member states and research funders' commitment here to make this happen, that's a key thing. And concerning funding, a key word here is really co-funding. So it's not one single funding coming out of Commission or some other source, but it is about co-funding, mixing different revenue streams, and how this is also something that, of course, this board and implementation will have to address in discussion, typically with member states and the funding agencies and other contributing parties. And finally, also more a value-based, but also for research, very important item, and the global aspects. The EOSC will be European and open to the world. And this is, of course, for research very important, because the research doesn't stop, or research collaboration that doesn't stop at the European borders, but it is really global activities today, so it should be open for global collaborations. So this is a declaration that is now out with the member states and the governments and the relevant ministries and agencies, and for their consideration. And I think we will see progress on this, and they are expected here during September to come with feedback and raise their or signal their willingness to work along these kind of guidelines. Okay, but let's then look where we are in the EOSCpilot, really looking into what we think about concerning governance of EOSC then. So this is now a bit just directly look into work in progress here. So bear with me if it's not totally clear, but it will be a possibility for questions here, of course. So the approach taken, and we discussed this before, the governance framework will enable and encourage engagements from the key stakeholder communities. And here a primary list, so to say, maybe not exhaustive: European infrastructure, of course, data and research initiatives, service and cloud providers, research funders, research communities and institutions, research infrastructures, and policymakers. And then it is very much about interoperability with a number of different domains or layers of a structure here. So to get things working together across institutions and across national borders, we need to address the issues of legal interoperability, interoperability of organizational processes, technical interoperability, operational interoperability, data and information interoperability. And this is something that is very important. And when we talk about the legal interoperability, it's very much also about policy interoperability, or about policies here concerning how the things are working in different countries, and how we can make resources and infrastructure, national infrastructures, available on a European and then also global arena. Very often in our projects, in our world, looking from a research and e-infrastructure, we are dealing very much with technical interoperability, and I think we have good progress there, and they are very far, but maybe less on these other topics here, that how the organizational processes and that need to be working together, and legal interoperability here. In the whole discussion around the governance framework for EOSC, it has been mentioned several times that one should take a look on the how internet is working and how internet is governed. Now, of course, the scope and size of EOSC is not to be compared yet with internet, but at least inspiration can come from here. So here are some nice infographics. I don't think you can see everything on your screens from these infographics, but maybe we could take a look on some important key understandings here. So we have these 3 layers that, I mean, it's an infrastructure layer in the bottom, there is a logical layer in the middle, and then economical and societal layer in between there. But the overall thing, and there is a statement in the top there that, and I think it's a good way of understand it, and that's also probably very much true, or will be true for EOSC, that no one person, government, organization, or company governs the digital infrastructure, economy, or society. Digital governance is achieved through the collaboration of multi-stakeholder experts acting through polycentric communities, institutions, and platforms across national, regional, and global spheres. Digital governance may be stratified into 3 layers to address infrastructure, economical, and societal issues with solutions. And there you have the web address to more information, and also this infographics, I think. So I think this is also notion that for EOSC, that there will be no single organization that will govern everything here. It will be several different governance bodies and actors, and for different parts. And that is also along the lines we are working with this in the EOSCpilot. If we look on this, what this multi-stakeholder collaboration is about, so solutions to issues in each layer include policies, best practices, standards, and specification developed by the collaborations of expert stakeholders from actors in business, government, academia, technical, and civil society. And if you look into the details here of, or we can take example from one from the logical layer here, and you recognize a number of these organizations, ICANN, ETSI, IETF, W3C, and so on. So many different organizations that governs different parts of this, and also you see how much different actors are bothering about these bodies, or coming up with own solutions, or even so. But the fact that the whole thing is working is that there are these bodies that actually give a direction for how things should be working if you wanted to have it available on the internet, or make it interoperable in any way. And that is, of course, the kind of structure that we foresee for EOSC also. For the EOSC governance, we are looking into this in try to map it in a model where we see there is an e-infrastructure layer, there is a data and content layer, a thematic service layer, and the research community layer. So the question still are these, we think that these are relevant layers, and then it is about to identify the actors and activities. And to identify the actors and activities and what type of governance that is needed, we are moving into a bit abstract thinking. But how we think about this is that we have a kind of try to build a governance framework grammar, and the thinking here is that the governance framework outlines some engagement. We have a number of parts of this. I mean, one is the engagement mechanism. So what kind of engagement? There is an expert group, it's a forum, there could be a forum like this governance development forum. It's a council, boards, legal structures of other types. And these mechanisms are needed to enable various EOSC actors that are typically the research infrastructures, European e-infrastructures, cloud providers, research funders, policymakers, all type of actors that are there. And then the engagement mechanisms helps these EOSC actors to coordinate various engagement aspects. So one have to find out who is responsible for things, what are the strategy. We have acquisitions, procurements type of it. How is the performance here of various activities within EOSC? Are the various activities their conformance and human behavior and so on? And these engagement aspects have is required to ensure interoperability within with these various engagement contexts, which is then what we discussed before. I mean, there is a legal policy context, there is an organizational context, operational, technical skills, we have financial and political. So now this starts to be very abstract, but these engagement contexts need to be handled then according to the actor's role within the supply chain. So, and there one can identify different roles, and one actor could have several roles, of course. It could be both a provider and funder, funder and policy regulatory, typical, but there are a number of different roles available. So a governance actor is an implementation of a governance structure. So, for example, we could create somewhere there will be a board to oversee performance and strategy, and that structure is there to meet, for example, in this case, show here, policymakers in their role as funders, their intent to support research challenges and the research agenda. So this is just a tool we are using, and a grammar to support the discussion around how to build a governance framework. So this is give you a flavor of the work that we are doing in the EOSCpilot, and how we start to form the suggestions that we will come up with concerning the governance of EOSC. So what have happened, we have done the stakeholder mapping, we're progressing with the framework now, and to conceptualize, as I've just presented, and all these different interoperability objectives specifically, and we assessing, and by this, using this thinking, we can assess different governance approaches and see how they could fit together and build a real structure, and what are the different stakeholders that need to be engaged here. So next steps is to have a draft framework for discussion late summer, and remind that we are still in not late yet, but soon, late summer. So so this is now progressing, will progress rapidly here, hopefully. We will gather feedback from the broader community then, and on this what we come up with, and there will be a possibility here to online tools and this kind of forum, and then workshops including a EOSCpilot stakeholder event at the end of November that we will announce, or it's already announced and available, and there we can hope for a broad participation and contribution. So to round off here, you can follow the governance development at this website, and there is also a mail address. You can contact us. Please send any contributions or thoughts you have, small as large. It doesn't need to be so formal or anything, but any ideas and input are welcome. We have a number of upcoming events. The 2nd of October in Tallinn, there will be a Governance Development Forum in conjunction with the ERG meeting and Estonian presidency. These monthly webinars will continue, and next one is the 14th of September. EOSCpilot will have a governance session at the Open Science Fair in Athens, 6 to 8 September. And there will also be, and I welcome you to the EOSCpilot Stakeholder Engagement event in Brussels on the 28th to 29th of November. I thank you for your participation, and remind that the next webinar will be 14th of September. Thank you.